The hum of the space station's engines filled the quiet conference room as Captain Adrian Kane leaned over the holographic display table. The soft blue light of the projection illuminated his sharp features, his dark eyes scanning the latest fleet readiness report with practiced precision. A veteran of countless battles, Kane carried an air of authority that left no room for doubt or hesitation. Around the table, his officers waited in silence, their anticipation palpable. "We'll need to reroute the supply convoy through Sector 12, Kane said, his voice low but firm. "The recent pirate activity in Sector 9 makes the usual route a liability." Lieutenant Marcus Mace Devrin, a younger officer with a rebellious streak that often tested the captain's patience, smirked. "And here I thought pirates would be a nice warm-up for the crew, sir." Kane shot him a glance that was equal parts exasperation and amusement. "Save your appetite for trouble, Lieutenant. We'll have plenty soon enough." Before Devrin could retort, the room's lights dimmed and a sharp chime echoed through the station. All eyes turned to the main communication console as a voice crackled over the intercom. "Captain Kane, we're receiving an incoming transmission. It's alien in origin." Kane straightened, his expression hardening. "Patch it through." The holographic display flickered and shifted, revealing a figure unlike anything the crew had seen before. The alien was tall and willowy, with translucent skin that shimmered faintly in the light. Its elongated head bore large, luminous eyes that seemed to hold the weight of countless sorrows. The creature's voice, translated through the station's linguistic algorithms, was melodic yet tinged with desperation. "This is Ambassador Threll of the Zalthari," the alien began, bowing its head slightly. "We humbly request your aid. Our homeworld, Zalthar Prime, is under siege. The Krorgans have unleashed devastation upon us, enslaving our people and razing our cities. We are defenseless against their might." The room fell silent as the ambassador's plea hung in the air. Kane's jaw tightened, his mind racing through the implications. The Zalthari were a peaceful race known for their advancements in art and science, but they had little in the way of military power. The Krorgans, on the other hand, were infamous throughout the galaxy for their brutality and conquest. Responding to this call for help would mean plunging his crew into a war against a superior enemy. "Why us?" Kane asked, his tone measured. "Surely there are other species with stronger fleets, more resources." Threll's luminous eyes seemed to brighten with a mix of hope and despair. "You are Deathworlders. The galaxy speaks of your resilience, your courage, your ability to thrive in the most inhospitable of environments. We have no one else to turn to. Please, Captain Kane, you are our last hope." Kane glanced at his officers. Devrin's smirk had vanished, replaced by a rare seriousness. Dr. Elias Vren, the station's xenobiologist, stood with his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. A man of few words, Vren's presence alone often spoke volumes. Kane could feel the weight of their unspoken questions, their unspoken fears. "We'll need more information," Kane said finally. "Send us everything you have on the Krorgans' movements, their capabilities. We'll review it and decide our next course of action." "Thank you, Captain," Threll said, bowing deeply. "You cannot imagine what this means to us." The transmission ended, leaving the room in an uneasy silence. Devrin was the first to speak. "Deathworlders, huh? Didn't think our reputation had spread that far." "It's not just a reputation," Vren said quietly. "Earth's environment is one of the harshest in the galaxy. Our species evolved to survive extremes that would kill most others. That's why they think we're their best chance." Kane nodded, his mind already piecing together a strategy. "We're not committing to anything yet," he said, his voice firm. "But if what Threll says is true, the Zalthari are facing annihilation. We can't just stand by and watch." "And what happens if we step in?" Devrin asked. "The Krorgans don't seem like the type to back down without a fight." "Then we give them one," Kane said, his gaze steely. "But only if it's the right fight. I won't risk this crew unless I'm certain we can make a difference." The officers exchanged glances, their respect for Kane evident. He had earned their loyalty through countless battles, not by reckless decisions, but by calculated risks and an unwavering commitment to their survival. "Prepare the fleet," Kane ordered. "Devrin, I want you to assemble a strike team. Vren, start analyzing any data the Zalthari send over. I want to know everything about the Krorgans before we make a move." As the officers dispersed to carry out their tasks, Kane remained by the holographic display, staring at the image of Zaltar Prime that now filled the screen. The once vibrant world was marred by the telltale scars of war, craters from orbital bombardments, cities reduced to rubble, and vast swathes of land scorched beyond recognition. He felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. The Zalthari's plea had awakened something within him, a sense of duty, of purpose. Yet he knew the cost of war all too well. Lives would be lost, sacrifices made. But if there was a chance to save an entire race from extinction, could he really turn away? Deathworlders, he murmured to himself, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Let's see if we're as tough as they think. For now, the path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The Zalthari's call for help would not go unanswered. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace to find Zaltar Prime in chaos. The once pristine blue-green world now glowed ominously beneath a lattice of Krorgan warships, their massive forms blotting out the light of the system's twin suns. Flashes of energy weapons crisscrossed the space above the planet, punctuated by the brilliant explosions of Zalthari ships breaking apart. For a brief moment, the bridge of the flagship Vanguard was silent, the crew stunned by the scale of the devastation. "Status report," Captain Adrian Kane barked, breaking the spell. His tone was sharp, but there was an undercurrent of urgency that only those who knew him well could detect. The crew snapped into action, fingers dancing over consoles as they gathered data. "Enemy forces are concentrated in low orbit," Lieutenant Marcus Mace Devon reported, his voice steady despite the tension in his jaw. Scans indicate at least 10 Krorgan capital ships and twice as many support vessels. No sign of organized resistance from the Zalthari. "Their defenses must have collapsed already," Dr. Elias Vren murmured from his station, his calm demeanor belying the intensity of his focus. The Zalthari never stood a chance against this kind of firepower. Kane nodded grimly. "Open a channel to the fleet." A communications officer nodded, and Kane stepped forward, his voice resonating with authority as he addressed his forces. "This is Captain Kane. The situation is worse than we anticipated, but our mission remains the same. Protect the Zalthari and drive the Krorgans from the system. Remember, we're Deathworlders. We've faced worse odds before and prevailed. Today will be no different. Stay sharp, and may fortune favor the bold." As the channel closed, a low murmur of affirmation rippled through the bridge. Kane turned to Devrin. "Deploy the fleet. We'll divide our forces to draw their attention. Vanguard and the escorts will engage the capital ships. Devrin, take your strike team to the surface. We need to secure a foothold and locate any surviving Zalthari." Devrin grinned, his earlier tension giving way to the adrenaline-fueled excitement he thrived on. "Understood, sir. We'll give them hell." Minutes later, Devrin and his team were aboard a dropship, hurtling toward the war-torn surface of Zaltar Prime. The descent was anything but smooth, turbulence rattling the craft as it passed through the planet's atmosphere. Below, the sprawling city of Zalkara, once a beacon of Zalthari culture, lay in ruins. Fires raged across the landscape, and columns of black smoke rose into the sky, blending with the ash-filled clouds. "Touchdown in 30 seconds," the pilot called over the comms. Devrin stood, gripping the overhead rail as he addressed his team. "You all know the drill. Stay tight, watch each other's backs, and remember, we're here to protect, not destroy. Let's show these Krorgans what humans are made of." The dropship landed with a jarring thud, the ramp lowering to reveal a scene of utter devastation. The team moved quickly, fanning out to secure the area. The sound of distant gunfire and screams filled the air, a grim reminder of the stakes. Deverin's earpiece crackled as Kane's voice came through. Deverin, we've detected Krogan ground forces converging on your location. They're likely trying to cut off any survivors. Be prepared for resistance. Acknowledged, Deverin replied, signaling his team to take defensive positions. Looks like we're about to have company. The first wave of Krogans appeared moments later, their towering, heavily armored forms moving with brutal efficiency. Their war cries echoed through the ruined streets as they opened fire, their plasma weapons carving through the air. Deverin's team responded in kind, their training and coordination allowing them to hold the line against the onslaught. Focus your fire on the leaders, Deverin ordered, his voice cutting through the chaos. Disrupt their chain of command. Amid the battle, Deverin's sharp eyes caught a glimpse of movement in the rubble. He gestured for one of his soldiers to cover him as he advanced, finding a group of Zalthari huddled in a collapsed building. Their wide, fearful eyes met his as he knelt before them. "We're here to help," he said, his tone as reassuring as he could manage. "Can any of you fight?" One of the Zalthari, a young male with a deep gash across his forehead, stepped forward. "I can," he said, his voice trembling but resolute. "My name is Kale." Deverin nodded, handing him a sidearm. "Stick with me, Kale. We'll get through this together." Back in orbit, the battle raged on. Kane stood at the center of the Vanguard's bridge, issuing orders with precision as the ship's weapons hammered the Krogan capital ships. Despite the odds, the human fleet's agility and ingenuity were beginning to turn the tide. Kane's eyes flicked to the tactical display, noting the positions of Deverin's team and the remaining Zalthari civilians. "Sir, we've identified a weak point in the Krogan flagship shields," the tactical officer reported. "If we can exploit it, we might be able to disable their command structure." Kane's mind raced. The move would be risky, leaving the Vanguard exposed to counterattacks, but it could shift the battle in their favor. "Do it," he said firmly. "Coordinate with the fleet and focus all firepower on that point. We take out their flagship, and the rest will follow." As the Vanguard and its escorts moved into position, the Krogans intensified their assault, their desperation evident. Explosions rocked the ship, alarms blaring as damage reports flooded in. But Kane stood unwavering, his confidence and resolve a beacon for his crew. On the surface, Deverin's team had managed to hold their ground, but the fight was far from over. Kale had proven himself a quick learner, his determination inspiring the other Zalthari to join the fray. Together, humans and Zalthari fought side by side, their combined efforts slowly pushing back the Krogan forces. "Captain, the flagship shields are down," the tactical officer announced. "We have a clear shot at their core." "Fire," Kane commanded. The bridge fell silent as the Vanguard's main cannon unleashed a devastating blast, striking the Krogan flagship dead center. For a moment, time seemed to freeze as a massive ship erupted in a fiery explosion, debris scattering across the void. Cheers erupted on the bridge, but Kane remained focused, his gaze fixed on the tactical display. "Deverin, the flagship is down. The remaining Krogan forces are retreating. Secure your position and prepare for extraction." "Understood, sir," Deverin replied, a rare note of satisfaction in his voice. He glanced at Kale and the other Zalthari, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. "We're not out of this yet, but I'd say we just gave them a reason to hope." As the smoke began to clear and the battle subsided, the battered but victorious human forces stood as proof of the Deathworlders' resolve. The war was far from over, but for the first time, the tide had turned. As the human fleet regrouped in orbit, the battle-scarred surface of Zaltar Prime told the story of a hard-fought victory. Fire still smoldered in the ruins of Zalkara, and the air was heavy with the scent of ash and ozone. Yet, among the devastation, there was a flicker of hope. Captain Adrian Kane stood on the Vanguard's observation deck, staring down at the planet below. He could feel the weight of the war pressing against his chest, but there was no time to dwell. The Krogans would regroup, and their vengeance would be swift. "Sir," Lieutenant Marcus Deverin's voice crackled over the calm, breaking Kane's thoughts. We've secured a forward position near Zalkara. The Zalthari are gathering survivors. We've got intel that could change the game, but it's not pretty. Kane turned from the viewport, his expression grim. Report to the war room. I want a full debrief. Moments later, Devrin strode into the room, his armor scorched and dented, but his posture unyielding. Dr. Elias Vren was already there, poring over holographic schematics of Korgan technology. A group of senior officers flanked them, their faces tense. Devrin wasted no time. We found a Korgan command outpost hidden beneath Zalkara's central plaza. They've been using it to coordinate their operations across the sector. That's not all. They're processing Zalthari civilians, turning them into, he hesitated, his voice catching, fuel sources. The room fell silent. Kane's jaw clenched, his hands balling into fists. Explain, he said, his tone icy. They've developed a way to convert biological material into energy, Vren interjected, his voice clinical but tinged with disgust. The Zalthari's unique physiology makes them ideal for this process. It's barbaric, even by Korgan standards. How many? Kane asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Devrin's gaze dropped. Hundreds, maybe thousands. We rescued as many as we could, but the facility, it's a nightmare. Kane took a deep breath, forcing himself to focus. Can we destroy it? Vren nodded. Yes, but it's heavily fortified. The Korgans won't let it go without a fight. And there's something else. We intercepted transmissions indicating reinforcements are en route. If we're going to strike, it has to be now. The captain's gaze swept across the room, meeting the eyes of each officer in turn. This is our moment, he said. We hit that outpost. We cripple their operations in this sector. We give the Zalthari a chance to rebuild. But make no mistake, this will be the hardest fight we've faced yet. Some of us may not make it back. Devrin's voice cut through the tension. Then we'd better make it count. The plan came together quickly. The fleet would provide cover, drawing Korgan forces away from the surface, while Devrin's strike team infiltrated the outpost. It was a high-risk operation, but there was no alternative. The lives of the Zalthari depended on their success. The assault began at dawn, the first rays of sunlight piercing through the planet's ashen sky. Devrin's team moved with precision, navigating the labyrinthine corridors of the Korgan facility. The air was thick with the hum of machinery and the faint, otherworldly cries of the captives. Every corner they turned revealed more horrors, but the soldiers pressed on, their resolve unshaken. We're approaching the reactor core, Devrin reported, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. Vren, do you have the schematics? Uploading now. Vren replied over the comm, you'll need to overload the control systems manually. It'll trigger a chain reaction that should destroy the facility. And us along with it, one of the soldiers muttered. Devrin shot him a sharp look. Not if we move fast. Let's go. They reached the core, a sprawling chamber filled with pulsating, alien machinery. At its center was a massive energy conduit, glowing with an eerie, pulsating light. Devrin and his team worked quickly, planting charges and bypassing security systems. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the corridors, growing louder with each passing second. We've got company, one of the soldiers warned, raising his weapon. Hold them off, Devrin ordered, his fingers flying across the console. We're almost there. The firefight was brutal. The Korgans fought with the ferocity of cornered predators, their massive forms absorbing hits that would fell a human soldier. But Devrin's team held their ground, their determination unyielding. Detonation sequence initiated, Devrin announced, his voice cutting through the din. We've got 2 minutes to get out of here. Move! The team retreated, fighting their way through the facility as explosions began to ripple through its structure. The ground shook beneath their feet, and the air was filled with the deafening roar of collapsing machinery. Devrin's heart pounded as he pushed his team forward, every step a battle against the encroaching flames and falling debris. As they neared the exit, A section of the corridor collapsed, separating Devrin and Kale from the rest of the team. "Go!" Devrin shouted, shoving Kale toward the narrowing gap. "I'll find another way." Kale hesitated, his luminous eyes wide with fear. "I'm not leaving you." "That's an order," Devrin snapped, his voice breaking. "Go, damn it!" Reluctantly, Kale obeyed, disappearing through the gap as the corridor caved in completely. Devrin turned, his path blocked by flames and rubble. He was out of options, but he had no regrets. Activating his comm, he spoke his final words. "Captain, the mission's a success. Facilities going down. Tell the Zalthari. Tell them it was an honor." The line went dead. Above, the human fleet watched as the Krogan outpost erupted in a massive explosion, the shockwave visible even from orbit. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Kane stood in silence, his hands gripping the railing. He knew what that explosion meant. Devrin had given everything to ensure their victory. "Signal the fleet," Kane said finally, his voice heavy with grief and pride. "The Krogans will return, but today we've shown them what it means to stand together, and we will honor those who gave their lives to make it possible." As the Vanguard turned away from Zaltar Prime, the surviving Zalthari watched from the surface, their faces lit by the first rays of an unclouded sun. For the first time in weeks, they felt something other than fear. They felt hope, and they would never forget the Deathworlders who had fought and fallen to give them that gift.